I can relate to the other griefs too. Of within 3 years after losing our son, I also lost my dad, and so that was 2017. My son, 2018, lost my dad. I had an older brother in 2019. So I had those three losses just back to back, one year to the next too. And so yeah, on my grief group, I mean, I'm able to kind of relate to that range.
Welcome to Imperfect Momming. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we are actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can still all be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Imperfect Momming. I'm Alicia Lyons, your host, mom support coach, and we have a very special guest today, Mae Renfroe. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi. Well, I'm excited to be here today with you.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hey, well, I am a busy mom of 10 children, ages 24 down to 2. So I've got all the all the ages in between there, into basically everything. And my 24-year-old is home currently with us right now, and then I have one under him. The 19th is away from home, and then 17 down to 2. So helping some learn to drive, in school, helping them with difficult math that I can't even understand, learning to read, and the preschool, and my youngest is still nursing. So just that's how I am as a mom and a wife. I've known my husband for 25 years. We just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary, and I love encouraging mothers and their role is in motherhood and in that journey, because it's hard, and I've been on this journey for 24 years now, and it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. And then I love to encourage mothers and women that have had child loss and like miscarriages or an older child. Like we lost our 14-year-old in 2017, and just so those on that journey that are just sent the world spinning or flipped upside down and never seen it coming. So I like to support and just kind of be there for them and give that hope that I found, which I found in Christ, and to share that hope and just encourage them that as long as we're here, God is still writing our story and it's not over. So I do that. So I've written a book about our story. I have a podcast that I do, and a grieving group called Grieving with Hope. And so it's kind of what I do, like that in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, I mean, thank you for sharing all of that. And I just want to highlight in the 10 children. That's a lot.
Okay.
You must really enjoy it, or or be glutton for punishment. I'm not sure.
Yeah. This is not easy.
Depending on the day, right?
Yeah, and nights. I mean, my little one was awake for an hour or so last night, and then the other night too. Mostly he'll just wake up, nurse, and go back to sleep 2-3 times a night. But sometimes he'll just be upset, like I don't know, and he'll take a while till finally he wants to nurse and go back to sleep. So challenge, but it's worth it.
And I'd love to hear about your book, and I'm sorry for the loss of your 14-year-old, and whatever you want to share about that, and or how you pivoted and turned that into supporting other moms.
Oh yes, I'd be glad to. Sure. So I am just gonna grab my book for those can see my book is called Holding On to Hope. So it came from 4 years of blogging. So we lost our 14-year-old son in April of 19th, 2017. And I was already had a blog where I'd blog stuff about encouraging mothers, homeschooling, my faith journey. And I just started blogging the new journey. The day,
Mm.
April 18th, 2017, I wrote it down, all the details I could think of, and wrote that down, and then started sharing. Another entry would be a week later, a few days later, a couple weeks later, however I could. And I would say, this is what I'm going through, and this is what's helping me. Maybe this will help you. Like, I don't know your story, but this is be a scripture or verse, something my mom said, a friend said, or just something that I felt God just speaking to me, and or just remembering the truths of God, things that we can stand on to. And I'd say, here's a promise that He said He'll never leave us nor forsake us, or that He'll give us peace when we keep our minds on Him, and all these things. So yeah, that's the book is. So it's blog. So after 4 years of blogging, I turned it in to the book. Then, after losing our son, I just really had a new passion to help others. Like, 'cause I had never experienced something like this before, and then I was like, whoa, like, this is hard. Um, with God, though, I really had a hope and a peace, and that helped me. But I'm like, I want to be there for others, because this is a really hard journey, and I know there's a lot of us. I'm not alone, and so I just started thinking of ways and things that I could reach out. So I did that. Yeah, it was first the blog, and then I started the grief group, Grieving with Hope, and that comes from a verse in Second Thessalonians, might be 4:13. This is, we grieve, but not without the hope of God. And so I thought, the title, Grieving with Hope, we grieve, but not without the hope of God. So it was like, a faith-based grief group where people could find hope and encouragement. I'm not always there, like, being able maybe to give that support. I'll do videos there occasionally, get on and just say, hey, and how are you doing, and give some encouragement and stuff. And then I really like that people can share things too, and I can kind of comment on that, or others can comment with something. And so I'm hoping, that, well, it has really grown. It's maybe not quite the support system it could be. So I'm hoping it'll be more so, but we're 3,000 members on the grief group. So for me, that feels big.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just came from that place, wanting to help, do my part to help.
Yeah, that's really beautiful, because it's, obviously you're not the only one who's gone through grief, because you have 3,000 people, and even more than that have gone through it, and having a place to go, and I think that a big things that moms struggle with is feeling alone inside anything that they're dealing with. And grief is really a heavy topic, and it's kind of like, I don't know if this was your experience, but a lot of times people are there in the very beginning, and then within 3 months they're not necessarily checking in on you anymore. Maybe it's different when losing a child versus losing a parent. A girlfriend of mine had recognized that with when she lost her dad, that everybody was there in the first 3 months, and then it kind of tapered off, and everybody's living their lives, and not to begrudge them that, but then you're feeling this grief on your own. And she ended up writing a book of poetry, which I think that you said that you had a book of poetry as well.
Yeah, it's okay. The one for encouraging moms. No, not a book of poetry. A book of quotes. I did write two, like, poem, kind of myself in the back, but no, it's just a book of quotes encouraging mothers about motherhood and everything. Yeah, that one.
Awesome. Yeah. So I said all that just to say, it's great that you've created a place for moms to go when they're grieving, and that it's not exclusive to one group, one type of grief or another, but grief as a mom. And yeah, I think that's, I being a mom of an only child, like, I couldn't imagine. I don't know that it makes it
better or worse having more kids than the one. But yeah, I think that we need more people who go through and overcome certain things, or to turn around and reach your hand back and lead the next person. And I love the way that you came up with ways of blogging, like people said something to you, or you read a Bible verse or a quote or whatever it was, and then turn that into a book. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I'm grateful to God for it. All him points back to him. And I was going to say that I can relate to the other griefs too. Of within 3 years after losing our son, I also lost my dad, and so that was 2017. My son, 2018, lost my dad. I had an older brother in 2019. So I had those 3 losses just back to back, 1 year to the next too. And so yeah, on my grief group, I mean, I'm able to kind of relate to that range on there. And I was going to say, when you said about noticing that you maybe have the support and people being there for you early on, and then drop off. Yeah, I would say I did experience that, but I had those that have also had the losses that knew it was like, and really was there for me for the longer, because they would check in with me when someone that has been through it more and can really relate than they're, so I've had both and been great. Grateful for that. But yeah, I think, I guess that's kind of normal, because for other people around you, it's like, oh my goodness, they want to support, and be there. But then, after a while, they kind of life goes on for them, and it does for us too, but in a whole different way. It's quite a journey, and depending, who it is, and you lost me, just how close you are, just we're all going to grieve differently. It's going to look differently, and one grieving a certain way is not wrong with another or anything. But I think for me, I've heard someone say for me, when I lost my dad directly after, and then a brother directly after that, they said that I was probably still in quite shock with my son, and I may not, because I didn't grieve my dad like so much. I'm like, yeah, I still miss him, and I go over to my mom's, but right after it was really a void. Like I wasn't like really emotional or anything about it, but going there and not seeing him in his favorite chair and all of that, and that stuff, yeah, it was definitely hard. I mean, you miss him, and I still do, but I don't know, it didn't just hit me as hard as I think maybe it could have, because I just lost my son, and then falling year brother, and so yeah, it was just hard, the whole thing, just to the family, and even my kids were kind of like, well, who's next? They even wondered for themselves, like, we never went there, never thought we would lose a child ever, and then when we did, they couldn't help but kind of wonder, well, who's next? And then especially when it was like one person 1 year, one person, like, okay, what's 2020 gonna bring? But nothing. Nothing.
You already had all the loss pre-COVID, and yeah, I think that you bring up a good point, that everybody grieves differently for different people. When I lost my best friend in 2019, and then my dad passed in 2022. And before that, it was, I think 2009 was the person. I lost my grandma in 2009. And each of those was different. And, there was a varying degree of knowing that the person that I was going to lose that person. From having, 10-year lead up to just knowing that my grandma was older and we don't live forever, to absolute suddenly zero knowing that it was coming, and zero preparation. And so and each of them was hard in a different way. And I think that a lot of times with grief, we have an expectation of how it's going to feel, or how we're going to, what we're going to experience, or and I don't think that there's definitely no one size fits all for grief. The same way there's no one size fits all for parenting a child, like every child is different, and
Oh yeah.
it's somewhat of a disservice to parent our children, every single child the exact same way. Now I have one child, so I don't speak about parenting multiples very often, or what you should or shouldn't do, or what's appropriate or not appropriate, but I do know that every single person and every single child is different, and so I think parenting them differently is similar but different.
Yeah, in that way, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So is there a piece of advice that you want to share for moms listening?
Just, I mean, believe true hope comes from Jesus. And so that's why I just really encourage your faith, and just really want to see them lean on God, get in the Word, and get to understand and get to know Him more personally, intimately. Believe that relationship is so important with God. We can know things about Him, about the Bible, and going to church, or all of these things, but when it comes to those things in itself is not going to bring that peace and that hope and that comfort and joy. That can only be found in a breathing, living relationship with Jesus, which happens on a day-to-day basis, like ongoing. And so that's what I really encourage, just to get in the Word and get to know Him and who He is. Like, get in the Bible and you can really understand His heart, because I know a lot of people would think, well, if He is good, why does He let these things happen? And it doesn't feel good. I mean, He could prevent all of this, and yeah, He could, but this is the world we live in. It's it's often referred to as a broken world, and it's not a perfect place. That will come in heaven. And He said, actually, John 16:33 says that in this world we will have tribulation. First, it says, in me you'll have peace, but in this world you have tribulation. But be of good cheer, I've overcome the world. Or another version says, take heart. And so we can just know, that He didn't promise things wouldn't happen, but He did promise that He'd always be with us, giving us encouragement. And go ahead.
That inner peace, having inner peace is something that, regardless of the circumstances that are happening, that you can still feel that peace. Externally there's chaos, but internally there's peace. And that is something that you can get to, if that's what you're searching for, if that's what you're working towards. And yeah.
Yeah, I would say, and things that helped me was like listening to praise and worship music. That was really instrumental. Like hearing these words of these songs that was talking about the truths of God and His promises. And then there was artists that had loss, and I knew of too. Stephen Curtis Chapman lost a little girl, and Jeremy Camp lost his first wife to cancer. And just when they would sing about, I knew they had been through as hard things, and yet they were singing of the goodness of God, and that He is still good and still faithful and still true, and a promise keeper. And so those things just really helped me. So that's what I encourage others to. We can't do this alone. And it said when we keep our minds on Jesus, that He would keep us in perfect peace. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I want to just read a verse right quick that I have on the back of my book, that is like my theme verse is Romans 15:13. Now the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace and believing, that you may abound in hope through the power of the Holy Ghost. Other version said you may overflow in hope. But it seems like, we can be, like I think you mentioned already, things can be going on, but in your heart you have that peace. In that heart you have that hope. You can still overflow with hope when we really cling to God and submit and surrender. And I said, just don't lose hope.
Yeah.
Keep clinging on and have yourself kind of a safe community of people that understand. That's going to help to lift you up instead of pull you down. It's the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And like, I love the name of your group, because
Grieving
if
with
you don't,
hope.
when we don't have hope, like what it kind of turns into, like, what's the point? You know, without the hope of feeling better or things getting better or whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a book that's been instrumental in your journey, in your personal development journey?
So my spiritual journey, or just mothering journey? What was the question?
I said personal development journey, but however you want to answer that question is fine.
Wow, I could never pinpoint it to a certain book. So if I could be more general, but books, inspirational books of people's true stories have been instrumental to me, and really getting into those books and hearing others' stories has really given me a faith, and it builds my faith. And like Nick Vujicic, the man born without arms and legs. And I don't know what book it was, because I've got 4 or 5 of his books. I was reading one of his books right after we lost our son, Clayton, and I had so our 8th child at the time was 3 months old, so I was nursing her. So I would lay down when I was nursing and read a book, because that's what I always did. And I know it's very, very hard to concentrate at this time, but I still just grab a book and I would I'd read a paragraph, reread it, read. Anyway, and those words just leapt off that page into my heart and into my spirit. And I was like, God, you knew I needed this. So that happened to be one of his books at the time, but it was just books of people's stories that had gone through things, yet God met him there. And and that, they were saying that God is faithful and he's still good. And so just a variety of books. And I just think that's really important, that we can read a lot of other things that maybe isn't bad, but if it's not building us up and drawing us closer to God and really feeding our spirit, it's not healthy for us.
Yeah.
And so, I encourage in that.
Yeah, I asked my last guest, the same question, because I always ask what book.
Okay.
And and then after I hit stop recording, she said, "Oh, I wanted to ask you what your favorite book is." And I said, honestly, I couldn't tell you a favorite book. I could tell you the last book and I can tell you the current book, but I don't think I could tell you a favorite book, because there's too many that I've read this year that have been impactful, and that have shifted things for me, and that I love. Like, I think that especially, obviously you're an avid reader, and I would not have called myself that ever in my life, but I read a lot of personal development books, because I'm interested in developing myself, my personal self. So I read a lot of them. But where can our listeners find you or reach out to you with, if they have questions, or if they want to join your group? Where can our listeners find you?
Oh yeah, on a YouTube channel is where I have podcasts. There where I have guests and things on with me too. I do just a lot of my own hope and encouragement and spiritual things there. Then the grief group, Grieving with Hope. If it's someone grieving that wants that. Then I have a Facebook page. It's called Mae Renfroe, where I just share all the same things, spiritual things, and hope and encouragement. And the latest videos that I do on YouTube, I post them there on that. And then I have a website, Mae Renfroe, MaeRenfroe.com. So that pretty much everything that I have is available there. I have my books listed there and things too. And
perfect. Well,
yeah, it's on Amazon too. So
cool. Well, thank you for joining us today, and for everything that you're doing in the world, because like I said earlier, a lot of people go through pain and it stops there, in that they stay stuck in the pain, but you've moved through it. I know that it still exists, but you're also reaching back and bringing along the next person. And so I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I've really enjoyed sharing here. I love every opportunity that I can to talk about that hope and that peace that I have in Jesus that I know is available for every one of us. So, yeah, I just thank you again for having me today.
Absolutely. And we'll have another episode of Imperfect Momming for you all coming next week. And until we meet again, keep healing. Bye, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to Imperfect Momming. It's time for us to step up and realize that our power is not in trying to shape our children. Our power lies in shaping ourselves into the people we want our children to model themselves after. Don't just do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. When you become a more self-aware, compassionate, and confident person, you and everyone around you benefit. For more information about me and my work, visit AlysiaLyons.com. That's AlysiaLyons.com. See you next time.